Hey guys, what's up? It's DJ from the Culture War, and I got Shawnee with me.
Hey.
She says, "Hey." So, most people, pretty much everyone knows about the Gina Carano thing. So I just wanted to say my thoughts on it. It's pretty bullshit. I mean, if you read her posts, she's clearly talking about what could happen if you continue to, if you go down the path of hating your neighbor, or you go down the path of treating someone different because of political views and things of that nature. I recorded a video talking about, I think it was MSNBC, where they basically were saying they were talking about bringing the terrorist policies in the Middle East, the U.S. policies for terrorism in the Middle East domestically, and using that against political dissidents. I've seen them talk about libertarians, nationalists, that they're all the same and they need to be stomped out. Seeing people talk about re-education camps. I've seen I understand people on Twitter, they don't see this. Most people don't see people talking about this on mainstream news and stuff like that, but I do, because I have to look at this shit. So I've seen the calls and the amping up of the political divide, and I've seen particularly the left, and mainly leftists and progressives, use rhetoric that is the beginning stages of othering of other people based off of their political leanings. And this post basically just talks about the first thing that you start seeing happening for a government to justify its actions against a group of people is you have to castigate them, you have to other them, and put them in an area where they can easily be blamed for the ills of society at that point in time. Then it leads into the rounding up and stuff like that. And this is over usually the course of years that this happens. So, I mean, if you want to say that her opinions are hyperbolic, I mean, we can do that, but let's not act as though this is super offensive, or people don't take history and say you're repeating these things of history. And I don't really care that, it's about Germany leading up to the Holocaust and things like that, because it wasn't just Jews that were the Nazis went after. I mean, the first people they went after were their political opponents, and then worked their way from there. So we can talk about how this isn't apt or this hasn't happened, but this has happened in history. And if people are seeing a correlation to what potentially could happen, they should be able to say that. And again, at most, you just say that their comparisons are hyperbolic, or it's not really apt to what's going on. But it's not that damn serious. It's not like you're saying that these things didn't happen or they weren't serious. You're actually making an argument that the actions are serious, and they're being the early stages. The history is repeating itself in the early stages of what happened previous. You want to say anything?
Yeah, I just feel as though them firing her was just unnecessary, because honestly, what she said wasn't bad. I don't know why on earth people are so okay with the idea of shunning someone, or just being a dick to someone just because they vote differently than you. It's one thing to, you support a different political candidate or something, to then to be a bad person. Just because you don't vote for Biden doesn't make you a bad person. Say this person's independent, or you do vote for Biden, you're a bad person. The two aren't synonymous, and the fact that they keep trying to make it synonymous is wild to me. I saw too many people before the election like during the election talking about some, oh my god, if you vote for Trump, then like remove yourself from my life. Oh my god. Like I've even seen in something personal where I overheard a conversation where someone was like, yeah, so my friend says they might vote for Trump, and like I don't know if I could look at that person the same way anymore. And I'm like, so what is it that you want? Do you want them to vote for who you're voting for just because, or can this person not have their own opinion and on who to vote for? Like, what is this?
Yeah, it's funny. It's like with that, like even my brother, we had a similar
what I was talking
conversation. My brother, we had a similar conversation, and we had the conversation, and basically, he had somebody that was gonna vote for Trump. And I asked him outright, I was like, you want him to vote the same way as you? And then he was like, no, he doesn't have to vote the same way as me. But that's what you're saying.
That's what you're saying. And the fact that you're saying that you're going to be side-eyeing that person for not voting the same way as you, what it says to me is you want to tell someone what to do, but you don't want to do it because it makes you sound like an asshole.
It's basically, I can't be authoritarian. It's not really cool to do that outright, but I'm going to do it in a way that isn't so outright or isn't so.
It's very manipulative, because essentially what you do is you put somebody in a situation of saying like, all right, well, if you want to be my friend, then you won't do this thing. Like, why would you do that?
I mean, honestly, I'd just be like, I don't want to be your friend anymore.
And then get upset. And then it's like, see, what would happen is like that guy would be like, all right, well, I don't want to be your friend anymore. And then he'd be like, all right, well, I knew you were a racist all along. Like, sir, whoa.
I would like, well, you were friends with a racist.
Like,
so.
how did we get here? Like, you sliding down a really slippery slide, and it's not necessary.
I mean, most of the people that I see complaining about this have the IQ of frozen food. So, I mean, it's just because if you're looking at this and you're saying that she's saying that the exact same, because I have people arguing with me saying that she's saying that people, like they would say, oh, well, I didn't see Gina being put in a cage or anything like that. I was like, that's not, if you actually were able to read, which I know you're not able to read, you'd be able to see that that's not what she's talking about. She's not talking about the actual portion of when they rounded people up and put them in the concentration camp. She's talking about the lead up and the justification that led to being able to do that.
It's basically, they recreated this narrative of that these people are not seen as desirable, and that even if it's someone who's been your friend or longtime neighbor, that they're a bad person or they're in the wrong somehow. And I'm like, I don't know how people don't seem to get, like, this is how things end up like that, is you start planting that seed and it grows into this big old hatred tree. And I'm like, how do you guys miss that? And I mean, yes, her like analogy was hyperbolic, but I mean, she's not the only person who works for Disney Star Wars that's made a similar thread. Disney or
in general. I mean, like, I have so many examples of this actually happening in other cases, either referring to people as Nazis, referring to people as terrible people, calling for people's deaths, or they turn around and like the I think her name was Christina Ariel or whatever the hell, she's talking about, like, she's basically castigating all white people as racist. So
honestly, like, what it comes down to with this whole thing with Gina is like, she just isn't on. There are too many people that like Gina, and there are too many people who like Gina that are not, who they consider undesirables as fans. And that's why it's so easy to say, okay, well, we're going to let her go. The bad part is the people that were considered your undesirables as fans are going to go too. Like, they're going to go. And that was the majority of a lot of the people loving The Mandalorian. I mean, not only that, but there's no more Baby Yoda. Like, I'm not watching The Mandalorian for Pedro Pascal and his sometimes lackluster interpretation of this character. I'm not doing that. There's no Baby Yoda. There's no Cardoon. I'm out of here. Like, there isn't anything to keep me entertained anymore with this show.
I mean, most of the normies were there for Baby Yoda anyway. So,
yeah, I mean, yeah. You know, my normie ass was there for Baby Yoda.
You get, like, for instance, you have Pedro Pascal, and I have two instances of her essentially equating different things in modern day history. This was during this was
But
in 2008.
this the reason why this is okay and why Disney wouldn't say anything about this is because they too believe in this whole, like, this is a good comparison, they feel, because these two things are synonymous. Like, that's,
but they're not, because none of these kids were getting rounded up and put in, like, they were not being, put in gas chambers or being exterminated. This is the result of people trying to cross the border, they getting caught, their parents going to jail, but they can't put kids in jail, so they have to put them in these facilities. So, I mean, unless you want these kids just running around in the streets.
And for what it seems, even if they outfitted these facilities to look kind of like daycare centers more so than this, people would find a way to have a problem with it. Remember when Wayfair was going to send beds? And everybody, they got mad and they told Wayfair not to do it and whatever, and then Wayfair pulled out. And I'm like, you didn't want children sleeping on the floor, but then you didn't want them to allow to be sent beds.
Or
like toothbrushes. Like, they would go after the companies that would send things to make their conditions more livable. And it's like, this is like a literal snake eating itself.
Well, what's hilarious is no one cared about this when the facilities were built during the Biden administration. Nobody cared when it was that. Most of these pictures that you've seen are from that era, time.
Yeah.
They're not actually from when Trump took office, because these facilities were there prior to him being there.
They don't care about that because, you know, they love Obama. And, you know, it's like to me, those people who cling to that era, it's like this whole all that glitters is gold type of deal. Like, everything is great. They just they look at everything through rose-colored glasses because it all fits in their bubble. And then when you tell them things that's outside of their bubble, or you let them know the truths that were going on and during those times, they don't know what to do. They immediately get upset. And I'm like, you do need to accept that, like, not everything during these presidencies, during these terms, is going to be amazing. There's going to be good things done and bad things done. And you need to look at both realistically. But for whatever reason, people can't do that. So
it's not that. I mean, you got this one too, equating modern day politics to the Nazis in 1950 and the Confederates 1860. I said 1950s. I meant 1940s, but 1930s technically, because that's when they took power. But I mean, this is the type of thing I'm talking about. You got Jack Morrissey, he wasn't part of actual Lucasfilms. He was part of the Disney animation team.
What in the actual? And he's talking about kids? Like,
yeah, these were the Covington kids that whole thing turned out to be bullshit. That's what he's talking about. He deleted the tweet and apologized, but he didn't get fired for this.
Big freaking.
So, like, you have that. You have, I mean, I don't even want to really hear what Disney has to say, because if you look here, you got on the right, which is the Americans Force Awakens poster, and the Chinese one where they made Finn smaller on purpose because, you know, China is pretty racist against black people. So, I mean, they specifically made him smaller. Yet they talk about how they did such a great thing with his character when they relegated him to just screaming Ray.
Honestly, I don't even know why on earth, like, I don't know why anybody, after the whole thing that happened with what's his name there, who played Finn, like, why are we even having... Why is this even a thing? Like, just... I
mean, and then we talk about the actress in Mulan saying that the police were doing a great job in what was that Hong Kong, where she was saying that the police were in the right instead of the protesters and stuff. You know, this is also about the...
Didn't they film Mulan next to this, like,
concentration camp? Yes, they filmed next to the concentration camp and then thanked the security forces that round up the people in this area and put them in these concentration camps. This is what Disney has done. You got this Christina Ariel, who was essentially calling all white people racist. So, I mean, what are we talking about in terms of, you know, being offensive, in terms of saying hyperbolic things, in terms of saying things that, you know, aren't necessarily apt, if that's what we're doing. But Disney then turn around and say, well, Gina's posts were abhorrent and terrible, and she was denigrating a religion and ethnic group of people. But, you know, that Disney's goes out of their way to lie about the situation. And I mean, I tried to tell people as well, like the whole thing with this Gina Carano thing, this started because she didn't want to put, I don't think this is it. She didn't want to put pronouns in there. And she told them that, hey, I don't really want to put my pronouns in my bio.
You shouldn't have to.
They harassed her to do it. And then she decides she's going to post beep boop bop. I don't think I have that up, but she posts that she was going to say beep boop bop. Or she put that in essentially the bio.
Yeah.
And then
apparently Pedro Pascal like talked to her about it. Why
that's offensive. But then
I
again,
was like,
why aren't you
listen,
talking
why
about
are
the
we
people
not
that were bothering her? Because she shouldn't be forced to do that.
She shouldn't be forced to do that. She doesn't have to. What's the reason? I don't understand why you need to at this point. Like, why are you identifying? Why are you adding your pronouns? When you're the person, you're not trans. Like, why are you adding your pronoun? For what's the reason?
Because the whole point they were saying that it makes trans people feel included, and it makes them feel like they're, essentially that they're.
How is a bunch of non-trans people adding their pronouns to their Twitter bios make trans people feel included?
Because for some reason it makes it. Their argument is that it makes them feel as though that you identify either with their struggle or something, or you acknowledge their struggle.
That's
or something
even
along
worse.
those lines.
That is even worse. If you are not a trans person, how on earth is adding your pronouns to your bio identifying with their struggle? That is
something like that.
That
or
is
you
so ridiculous.
You see them and then you sympathize with them and stuff like that. That's so ridiculous. So that's a whole thing on Twitter. But Twitter is just an echo chamber of bullshit. So, and then, I mean, I tried to tell people, like, this has been going on for months leading up to this point, because you got Mark Ratz who drew this. So you see here, he draws a poster of Mandalorian season 2, just a poster. Where Ahsoka is, that was Cara Dune's character. That was the character Cara Dune. And Disney asked him to remove that character and put Ahsoka. So he decided to put Ahsoka there. That's why she looks a little weird, because he had to erase it and then fill in the essentially space that Gina Carano's Cara Dune was. And he says outright that he appreciated working for Disney, and he says they asked him to remove her from the photo. And this was the actual, like, Lucasfilms told him to do that. So this was in December 20th.
They were looking to get rid of her anyway. They were gonna find a way to do it.
Yeah. Now you might say, like, she should have played it more close to the chest if she really did care, but it seems like she didn't really care too much. At that point, it's
like, why on earth should you get bullied into doing something just for the sake of, even though you're watching your peers do the same shit and worse, and everybody's okay with it. So I could understand why she'd be like, well, fuck it, like, since you guys are gonna act like that. But at the same time, it is smart that if you know the people that you're working with, if you know how people are, then you move better when it comes to them. Like, if I was her, I wouldn't have gave them a reason to fire me. They would have had to find one. They would have had to make it up, pull it out their ass or something. It just would not have been something just like that. It wouldn't have happened. You ain't gonna catch me slipping.
But, like, it's that's what I'm saying. Like, the actual post that they ended up firing her for was such a reach that that's why people were so pissed. So
she's gonna be working with Ben.
Yeah, because Ben Shapiro, that's just some good news with it. Like, I don't know how well this is gonna be. This is essentially a startup production and film company that Ben's doing, and he has one film out already. The company, I forgot what the film is called.
But you already know, because it's Ben Shapiro, and Ben Shapiro is a pretty polarizing figure to them. Because he's the one, who they said bullied that one guy who his mom and dad work for, or they own Ultimate Software or whatever.
Yeah,
I forgot that guy's name. Who was over there trying to make it seem like he was poor when in reality he wasn't.
He was trying to see he was down with the class struggle.
Yeah, when in reality he grew up pretty well off.
It's always those people that end up being socialists, which is hilarious to me. But, like, so I mean, yeah, so she's got a whole thing that she's going to be working with Ben and apparently producing films and stuff. His first film apparently was decent from what I heard. So I haven't watched it.
No matter what, she's still going to get paid off that Star Wars money.
Yeah. If she got a good contract, she'll get reoccurring payments from whatever. But I mean, Hasbro decided they scrapped her. Well, I get why they scrapped her figures, because I mean, she's not going to be part of Star Wars anymore. So why no point in really selling it.
Honestly,
So,
if they did sell it at this point, it'd get more money than them stupid ass Ray figures.
it was selling more. All of the Mandalorian stuff was selling more than any of the sequel trilogy stuff. So it's, you know, so that's a good thing for her. I mean, the only thing that I can see that she kind of messed up on is this one. But this was retroactively. People found this post, and we're using this to say she was anti-Semitic as well. This is your classic like 4chan shit where it's like all the Jewish people controlling everything. She posted it saying like, oh well, the point was if you just stand up against like the people in control, then none of this is going to be an issue. But this is probably the most I guess offensive thing that you can say that she did. But again, this was a retroactive fine after she was already fired and stuff. And then this guy, his name is Weiss, last name is Weiss. But funny enough, this guy here, who was, I think he's a ESPN. He works for ESPN, but Dana White had told him that, or basically said that people shouldn't have been coming at Gina Carano the way she was, and people make mistakes, and that guy made it all about him. I had to post though, but
why made it all about him? How?
This guy made it about him.
Oh, okay.
Saying that because he was saying that, oh, I'm Jewish and I'm offended, basically.
Okay, well, you and your fence can sit over there.
So I mean,
have
like,
a seat.
yeah. So he was just saying that. So Dana White was like, this guy is just making it all about how he feels and not like, yeah. So, but
like, if you're gonna work in journalism, like, why are these journalists so damn sensitive? Why are they all constantly inserting themselves into these like stories? It's quite annoying.
These are the same people that want to talk about the truth and reconciliation that we need to have as a country to get the truth. So, I mean, the thing about the truth and reconciliation stuff is that they just want to deem what is true and make people say they, Trump is the biggest evil ever. And this country's racist, and everything about it is racist, and then white people are racist. It's reconciliation is just all of these things are bad, and I want you to hold the blame for it. That's what the truth of reconciliation, and then the truth is to get to nail down a specific narrative that they can run with and say that this is the one truth and the only truth. So, I mean, like I said, these are the type of things that are going on if you pay attention to media right now that they're saying. The average person isn't really paying attention or going to see these things to know that this is what's being talked about, because the average person, I mean, we've seen it already with Biden's with Biden's inauguration. Basically, all those people that were screaming and crying about certain things are now saying, hey, or now not paying attention to politics anymore. So, I mean, they're just going to go to sleep for the next 4 years and then wonder why either everything is shit or why people are upset at the administration or whatever. They're not going to know half of the shit going on, and they'll be like, it was a great presidency or whatever. So that's all. What are you going to say? Because you were going to say something. Ain't nothing. Okay. Well, that's basically my thoughts on it. I don't really have anything really. I mean, I already talked about this. Yeah. So, all right, like, comment, and subscribe. Appreciate you guys. And see you later.
See ya.